Elizabeth Taylor was born Dame Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor on February 27, 1932, in London, England, to American parents whose lives were already connected to art and ambition. Her childhood unfolded under extraordinary circumstances, shaped by early displacement, global war, and sudden fame. When her family relocated to the United States during World War II, Taylor's striking appearance quickly drew attention in Hollywood, and by the age of 9, she was already under studio contract. Fame arrived before emotional maturity, placing her in adult environments long before she had the tools to fully understand them. While audiences saw confidence and sparkle, behind the scenes she was still a child navigating pressure, expectations, and scrutiny. This early exposure to adult worlds would later complicate how her youth was perceived, discussed, and sometimes misunderstood, creating narratives that often blurred the line between reality, rumor, and sensational storytelling. From child star to screen legend, Taylor's rise was swift and undeniable, with National Velvet in 1944 establishing her as one of Hollywood's most treasured young stars. As she transitioned into adulthood, she worked tirelessly to be taken seriously as an actress, rather than merely admired for her beauty. Films such as A Place in the Sun, Giant, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof showcased her emotional intelligence and willingness to explore flawed, complex characters. By the time she delivered her searing performance in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Taylor had firmly secured her place among cinema's greatest talents. Yet her fame carried a cost. The industry, and the media that surrounded it, often treated her not as a developing human being, but as a public possession. Every aspect of her life became material for commentary, speculation, and judgment, setting the stage for decades of distorted narratives about her personal experiences, love, loss, and public judgment. Elizabeth Taylor's personal life unfolded under relentless observation, with her marriages becoming headlines rather than private milestones. Her early unions, beginning with Conrad Nicky Hilton and later Michael Wilding, reflected a young woman searching for stability in a world that rarely offered it. The profound love she shared with producer Mike Todd brought genuine happiness, only to be shattered by his sudden death in a plane crash, a loss that left her emotionally unmoored. Subsequent relationships, including her famous marriage to Richard Burton, were intense, passionate, and deeply human, yet often reduced by the media to spectacle. Taylor's love life became a lens through which society judged her character, frequently ignoring the emotional vulnerability beneath the glamour. Rather than being afforded empathy, she was portrayed as reckless or excessive, a narrative that failed to acknowledge grief, trauma, and the pressures of living every heartbreak in public view. The culture of rumor and power. As Taylor's fame grew, so did the rumors surrounding her interactions with powerful men, reflecting a broader Hollywood culture that thrived on gossip rather than truth. In mid-20th century entertainment circles, young actresses were often discussed in ways that blurred agency, maturity, and responsibility. Stories circulated decades later about encounters with influential figures, including politicians and actors, but many of these accounts were based on secondhand claims, memoir embellishments, or sensational books seeking attention. Importantly, Taylor herself never publicly confirmed many of these stories, and historians continue to question their accuracy. What is often overlooked is the imbalance of power that existed in those eras, where young performers were frequently placed in adult social settings without adequate protection. These narratives say less about Taylor's character and more about a system that normalized speculation while rarely prioritizing truth or the well-being of young women in the spotlight. Reframing youth through a modern lens. Looking back through a modern lens, it is essential to approach stories about Taylor's adolescence with care, context, and responsibility. Descriptions of her as mature beyond her years were common at the time, yet such language often excused inappropriate attention rather than questioning it. Today, greater awareness allows for more nuanced conversations about consent, power dynamics, and exploitation, especially when fame intersects with youth. Rather than repeating unverified claims or framing them as scandal, it is more honest to recognize that Taylor grew up in an environment that blurred boundaries and encouraged silence. Any discomfort or confusion she may have experienced was rarely centered in public discussions. Reframing these stories is not about rewriting history, but about acknowledging that cultural standards once failed to protect young people, and that rumors should never overshadow empathy or replace verified fact. Elizabeth Taylor's own voice and boundaries. Throughout her life, Taylor demonstrated a clear understanding of how rumors could distort truth. She was outspoken when she felt misrepresented and unapologetic about reclaiming her narrative. While she acknowledged having lived passionately, she also pushed back against depictions that stripped her of complexity or humanity. Taylor understood that gossip often said more about societal fascination than about lived reality. She rarely engaged in correcting every story, choosing instead to focus on her work, her family, and causes close to her heart. In doing so, she set boundaries in an industry that rarely respected them. Her refusal to fully indulge scandal culture was an act of quiet resistance, signaling that her worth was not defined by whispered stories, but by resilience, talent, and the life she continued to build despite constant intrusion. Motherhood, protection, and priorities. Beyond the headlines, Elizabeth Taylor was a fiercely devoted mother whose children grounded her life. She worked deliberately to shield them from the relentless glare of fame, understanding firsthand how damaging unchecked exposure could be. Taylor's protective instincts were shaped by her own childhood experiences, and she prioritized emotional safety even when her own life felt unstable. She balanced motherhood with a demanding career, often choosing presence over public appearances when it mattered most. Her family life was not perfect, but it was sincere, rooted in love and responsibility. In later years, Taylor spoke openly about how becoming a mother reshaped her values, teaching her patience, humility, and perspective. This quieter legacy is often overshadowed by her romantic history, yet it remains one of the most authentic reflections of who she was, beyond the screen. Health battles behind the glamour. While the world saw diamonds and designer gowns, Taylor endured decades of severe health struggles that profoundly shaped her life. From chronic pain caused by early injuries to repeated bouts of pneumonia, spinal surgeries, and addiction linked to medical treatment, her resilience was extraordinary. She faced illness publicly, yet refused to be defined by it, continuing to work, advocate, and show up for others. Her openness about recovery and treatment helped destigmatize addiction at a time when such honesty was rare. Later, her diagnosis with congestive heart failure did not diminish her spirit. Instead, it deepened her empathy. Taylor's physical suffering remained largely invisible behind her image, yet it forged a strength that informed her activism, her compassion, and her understanding of vulnerability in others. Advocacy, purpose, and redemption. In the latter half of her life, Elizabeth Taylor transformed pain into purpose through tireless humanitarian work, particularly in HIV/AIDS advocacy. At a time when fear and stigma dominated public discourse, she used her fame to demand compassion, funding, and dignity for those affected. Her foundation raised millions and changed lives, redefining her legacy beyond film. This chapter of her life revealed a woman deeply aware of suffering, injustice, and the power of empathy. Taylor's activism was not performative, it was personal, persistent, and courageous. She stood beside marginalized communities when few others would, earning respect that transcended celebrity. In doing so, she reclaimed control over how history would remember her, not as a collection of rumors, but as a force for change rooted in humanity. A legacy beyond sensation. Elizabeth Taylor died on March 23, 2011, at the age of 79, leaving behind a legacy far richer than scandal ever suggested. Her life was complex, imperfect, and intensely human, shaped by fame, love, loss, and endurance. While rumors and unverified stories continue to circulate, they should never eclipse verified truth, personal agency, or compassion. Taylor's real story is one of talent forged under pressure, vulnerability met with resilience, and a woman who refused to be reduced to gossip. She remains a symbol not only of Hollywood glamour, but of survival in an industry that often consumed its own. Remembering her responsibly means honoring her voice, her work, and her humanity, allowing truth and empathy to speak louder than sensationalism ever could.